Hey everyone, Brendan here in front of the whiteboard. In this video, I'm going to share with you some really cool concepts all about binge eating. If you've ever found yourself binge eating, I'm going to explain why you could be binge eating, and it's going to be discussed around finance and relationships. Why these two? Well, these two are usually pretty dominant when it comes to people's stressors, but now I'm going to tie in something else. I'm going to tie in an activation key. Activation key, which is both. Anytime you have found yourself completely binge eating or going way out of town trying to consume comfort food like ice cream or cheese or crackers or even wine, really having a full pizza to yourself. I'm going to share some reasons why you might be finding yourself doing that. And it's all about activation keys. And this is something that I was learning, again, with one of my coaches and even one of my therapists. We're going to talk about being the first indicator. So the first indicator equals, what are you thinking about in the moment right before consuming the food? Question. Seconds before you're reaching for the food, going to the ice cream, going to the pizza, going to the cookies, going to the wine. Seconds before that, it is being initiated by a certain first activation key. And it's usually around thinking about finance or relationships. Okay, let's talk about finance and why it is often such a stressor for people. So we're going to put this arrow here. Finance, why is it stressful? I don't make enough. Okay, that's a common stressor. What else? I can't find a job to pay for the money. Or I can't find clients. Okay, that's another one. I am unable to get a raise. Okay, that's another one. There's a common theme here. All of this has a lot of scarcity and a lot of fear of not being able to get it, right? Can't get it. And so what happens is, anytime you're fearful of losing the thing that you want, there is a stress response, physiological response, psychological response, well, primarily psychological response, then it triggers a physiological response. And it's a stress response. And it is a fear-mediated stress response. And so there is a hormone that is responsible for the fear of loss because you're fearful of not being able to get the money. And so ghrelin is a hormone responsible for hunger. Anytime you're fearful of losing something that you want, it's going to awaken your amygdala, and you're going to now seek something that you can try to catch. And when it comes to scarcity and you feeling as though, and you're talking to yourself that you can't get the money and you're trying to find the money but you can't find the money, it literally creates a response making you seek something that you can find. And in most cases, when it comes to finance, and food is the one that you find yourself trying to reach because you can control what's on the end of the fork. You can control going to the fridge. You can control getting that satisfying sensation of eating the food because it makes you feel good because you're actually fearful of losing the money. So what can you control? The food. Sometimes, or pretty much every time, when you find yourself binge eating, we need to identify what was the activation key. And the activation key in this particular example is talking about finance. I'm not making enough money. I can't find a job. I can't find the clients. I'm unable to get a raise. When will I get I don't think I'm gonna have enough money for next month to pay rent. Anytime you catch yourself saying a statement like that, it's called a frame around finance. So a statement that's actually not true, but you've convinced yourself that it is true. You've convinced yourself that it's real. The truth of the matter is, I don't make enough. I can't find a job. I can't find clients. All of these are paradigms. All of these are frames that are actually untrue because you can change the results. You can do things that you can actually change to improve that or to change that statement so you can make it untrue. So that's an activation key. Now, let's talk about relationships. Okay, what's an activation key with regards to relationships? Again, this is all around you being fearful of losing your boyfriend or your girlfriend, or losing or not being attractive enough, or not being able to attract an opposite, like a partner, not being able or being scared of being rejected. Okay, so not finding a partner. Okay, not being able to find a partner. What else? Losing current partner. Okay, what else? Not being attractive enough. Not being good enough. Okay, those are all legitimate. Well, are they legitimate? But those are all statements that I'm sure some point or another you've said to yourself. Okay, and what happens is that being an activation key, that creates a stress response. That creates a response within your amygdala, again, to try to be aware with hypervigilance, trying to seek things that you're fearful of losing. And so if you're fearful of losing a partner, fearful of not being able to get a partner, fearful of not being attractive enough to get the cuddles and the physical activity with a partner, not being good enough, as a response, it wakens up the amygdala and you start to have hypervigilance in trying to control and trying to seek something. So if you can't find the partner necessarily, what do you find yourself having control over? Food. What's on the end of your fork? Going to the fridge, right? Because you've awoken up that amygdala, you've got a stress response. Which hormone is a result of that? Ghrelin. Ghrelin becomes online. You've got super duper hunger and all of a sudden and cravings wake up. And now you're eating the cookies or you're eating the ice cream. You're going for the comfort food. You're going for the wine. And you can't help yourself because you're in this state of fear. What is it? It's a frame around relationships. Not good enough. Not going to find a partner. I'm gonna get dumped. If I don't do this, I'm gonna get dumped or whatever. My partner's gonna be cheating on me. All these fear-based statements, which are false frames, they're not real because you can control these. You can rewrite the narrative. You can do things to actually make you not fearful because, again, it's just a false frame. And so anytime you're catching yourself saying these things around false frames, around relationships, for example, it awakens up your amygdala, it awakens up your ghrelin center, and all of a sudden you're starting to eat food. And you've got those binge eating. So I just wanted to share that with you because in the moment, right before you find yourself binge eating or doing that addictive behavior, what were you doing right before that? And in this case, you were making statements around money, making false statements, like making frame statements. I'm not enough, blah, 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 all the things that I just said, which causes that activation, which causes the going for the food because you're fearful of losing it. And it's the exact same thing with relationships. So being consciously aware of that activation key. What were you doing right before? What were you thinking about right before? And chances are you're saying to yourself a frame that's actually not true. And so if you can change that narrative, if you can change that frame, if you can truly go deep into your depths of thoughts and understand that what you're telling yourself is actually not true, because it's not true, it's this your contorted view on things, but it's not actually the whole situation, it's not the whole picture, then you'll actually have control over these activation keys. You'll have control over your hunger. Hope this helps. If you like this video, hit a like, hit a share. Share this with someone and maybe leave a comment below. Tell me if you think that I'm completely way off or if you think there's a little bit of merit to this. Until next time, Gut Whisperer out.